Hi, this is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. My special guest today is one of my Facebook friends who shares a love of historical novels with me, particularly Agatha Christie, and turned me on to, a nom de plume. Would that be the right way to call Mary Westmacott? And we'll talk more about that in a bit. Anyway, my guest's name is Brenda Spandrio.
Yes.
Okay, I got it right. People know I have to practice. Do community theater. My directors know I have to practice names. So Spandrio, who's more fondly known as the Declutter Lady. And we have this jive. We both love being organized, but as Brenda is going to explain, being organized is what, easier than getting organized, which I think is a wonderful take on this. So Brenda, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, as Kat says, I'm Brenda Spandrio. I live in Ojai, California, which is near the coast, and it's actually colder here than it is where you are.
Maybe not today, but many days.
But my husband and I have been married for 22 years, and the thing that people don't quite get in my family is that I was not a born organized person. I had very slovenly habits, I shouldn't say it destroyed my first marriage. It was not a winning factor. But I was able to learn how to get out of that through the kindness and direction of my husband, my current husband. And it took him walking me through what to do and how to make decisions in order to overcome that. So I was able to capitalize on that learning. I built a business as the Declutter Lady, which also kind of morphed into being a virtual assistant for people who don't want to do a lot of the things that they need to do to keep their business running and organized. So that's kind of me.
And to touch on that point right there, a lot of people who are afraid to move forward in their business keep their back end really messy as an excuse to stay busy in their business rather than active in their business and building it. I know that. I've fallen into that trap myself. And like you, I don't think I was born organized. I can be super organized. When I had a corporate job, I was known as the most organized person there. Anybody could go to my office or my cubicle, find exactly the file they needed, also put it back when they were done. And when I finally left corporate life to do coaching and consulting work full time, it took me all of 5 minutes to clear everything out, give all of the appropriate files to my supervisor or whoever she told me to pass them off. That isn't always the case here in my home office. And you're going to help us with that.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon. Part of it is because we don't have someone that we're accountable to other than ourselves. And unfortunately, that is a big problem for us because that means that we're not respecting ourselves quite as much as we should be. And others is, like you said, it's easy to be busy with other things because it's just us. We think, okay, it doesn't matter. But it does matter when we end up not being able to make a deadline, not being able to find what we want when we need it, or somebody getting upset with us, all those kinds of things. But
Right.
Being organized looks very different for each individual.
I know where everything is, so it's not that I'm disorganized. I just have a lot more projects going on at any one time or ready to be worked on than I did in the corporate world where I had a single focus for what I had to do. At home, there's home projects, there's client projects, there are my business projects, there are my personal projects, there are projects that I've deliberately put on the shelf to work on later, and it's a matter of how you store them and where you store them and how you get to them. But I know way too many people that struggle big time with this. So you've got some tips for us.
Yeah, for sure. What I like to tell people is how I originated. My husband is uber organized. I mean, he's above and beyond organized. I used to tell people that, he had the pepper in the same place in the Lazy Susan in the kitchen, and I was lucky if my pepper was in the kitchen. And, so he tolerates clutter less than I do. But as we've moved through our marriage, he tolerates more clutter than he used to. I tolerate less clutter than I used to. So it's been a compromise situation in that way. Clutter bothers me sooner than it used to now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a result of being in the habit of putting up with less clutter. I'm ashamed to say that in my growing up years and through my early marriage years, I would end up with 0 dishes in the cupboard and every single one on the counter. And it was embarrassing. And now it's a matter of, do I do the 10 minutes of dishes we have tonight or tomorrow morning? And I don't worry about whether I wait till tomorrow morning, because it's not every dish in the house on the counter anymore.
It's funny that you bring up the kitchen, because my followers know I'm married to a retired chef. He is uber organized in the kitchen and makes sure, and likes to do dishes, so the dishes are always done. But he has his own areas where he is super, super disorganized. So we can have places in our lives where we understand our organization and our tendencies and our habits there, but there are other areas where not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason for
nobody
that?
is completely organized and nobody is completely disorganized. I think if someone tends to be completely organized, they're probably OCD.
Mm-hmm.
And what it amounts to is how important is that thing. People talk about not wanting to get organized because it ruins spontaneity. But I question that, because it can be more spontaneous. If you want to run to the beach, then the person who has the towels folded in the closet, the swimsuits are all dried out, they can just jump in the car and go. The other person has to look through the trunk where, the swimsuits have been molding with the towels for how long, and you can't do anything like that. So I question the logic of being spontaneous. But as we go into tips for people, the most important thing is to worry less about what you should do and think about what you will do. People are big fans of this Marie Kondo method, and it sounds wonderful. I've not read the book, but I've read some of her tips, and I've used some of the folding techniques for my quilting fabric. But should you use all of hers? Maybe, but if it's not something you're going to do, if you're not a real, I got to have this folded exactly person, maybe that's not the system for you. Other people will say, well, if you get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, you can take care of whatever it is. But if you're not a morning person, that's not going to work. So what will you do to stay organized? Will you wash dishes by hand, or will you put them in the dishwasher? What's easiest for you to stay on top of? So we were talking prior to jumping on the call that I have a client that I work with on a regular basis, and she says she's always telling me she's looking for just the right system. If she just gets the right system, she has several systems. She uses none of them to the end of them. She's got filing cabinets, she's got folders, she's got piles, she's got color codes, but she doesn't use those things. So if you're not going to use a particular system, if it's not going to work for you, don't fight it.
Right, exactly. I feel the same way about Marie Kondo. I love her folding techniques for a lot of my clothing, but not all of it, and certainly not some of her techniques for elsewhere around the house. The same with the Fly Lady system. I love the Fly Lady system, but it wasn't until I tweaked it for me that certain things became routine and I just do them. I was not a morning make your bed sort of person. I mean, I spent 25 years on the farm and got up, milked cows, came back and took a nap, a short nap because I'm a natural night person. So I wasn't used to making the bed the very first thing when I got up. Now I can't hardly leave my bedroom without having that bed made first thing in the morning. But that was just one little piece I took out of the whole system, among several others. So I love that first tip, is that you really have to find what you, as you say, what you will do, and not keep telling yourself, I should do this.
Right, because that's self-defeating. And, that goes into our second point, which is you need to identify your own level of organization, because not everyone has the same comfort level with clutter. So you need to kind of be aware of yours, but you also need to honor the people that you live with. So like I said, my husband has less tolerance for clutter than I do. He has changed since then. So a lot of what I do is because I want him to be comfortable in his own home. And you mentioned Fly Lady. That was her starting point, was her husband wanted to make a cup of tea every morning. So he just asked her, please keep the sink clean. And that started her role on being able to do more. And we'll talk about how that also ties into what we're saying here. But you have to identify, what are you comfortable with? People could look at my husband's office and say, what a mess. But in fact, his office is extremely organized, not because he's not in the way that people say there's all these piles, but I can find something. He creates packages of, we were talking paper. Some people still like paper. That's him. He creates what he calls packages for all his clients, binder clips them together. He's got everything where he needs it. And it's in certain order of piles in his office. Other people need everything to be cleared off before they're comfortable doing anything. It's not an all or nothing proposition. I hate people that get upset at their kids because they mix the red Legos with the yellow Lego. I mean, again, we're talking OCD kind of thing. I think it's important to teach children how to pick up after themselves, help around the house, and that kind of thing, but not in a way that equates it with punishment. And I think that's a lot of the reason that those in our generation in particular have such a hard time, because cleaning the house was always equated with punishment instead of an honor and a privilege. When we think about where we live in the United States and all that we have, as much as I would rather do something else than clean the house, when I clean the house, I find myself extremely grateful for the blessings that we have where we live,
and
clean water, all of that.
Right, you mentioned our generation. We also grew up with that Uber cleaning session all day Saturday morning or all day Saturday, the spring and the fall. And those developed over time to suit people's lifestyles at the time. One of the things I really enjoy about the Fly Lady system is the little mini cleanings, that if you can take care of little mini cleanings throughout the week in 10, 15 minutes, then your home is always ready for company at a level you're comfortable with. I think another thing is we've gone several generations now where children are not being taught how to be homemakers. And I'm not talking gender roles here, just homemakers. Right. So you've got mothers and sometimes grandmothers who were never taught how to keep a house. And they're not teaching, therefore they're not in a position to teach their children or grandchildren. And it just kind of snowballs. And then it becomes an accumulation problem on top of it. All right, so let's go on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I like this. So consider what you will do, not what you should do, and identify your own level of organization. And trust me, my family, in particular my husband now, knows when I've reached my level of disorganization, something's got to go. He has a habit of keeping envelopes that will be thrown away. And it's like, okay, this is fair warning. It's now at a level that I'm not comfortable with. So either do something.
And that's just part of honoring your relationship.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
something about
Yeah.
it. All right, so what's your tip number 3?
Well, this whole handling things only once, that's a myth. It's always bothered me that people say you should only handle things once. I don't agree, because there are a few things, maybe junk mail. So you come in the house with the cards in the mail that you don't need, stuff that you're not going to deal with. Fine, handle that once. Most of the time, what we need to do is take that item and make a decision about it. And one of those decisions might be to process it later, but that's still a decision. And then what I recommend at that point is you decide when. I'm a big proponent of using your calendar for everything, every decision that you have to make, because everything takes time.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get something that I can't process right then and there, something that is going to take time and attention, then I have in my calendar, Wednesdays and Fridays are my financial days, check bills, what needs to be paid, and it's also Fridays are my time to review things that I want to process. So I move it forward. So handling things only once, don't get hung up on that. Just figure
Right.
out what has to happen next with that, and then put it in a place where you'll retrieve it again. And that's the other way I use my calendar. If I have even a piece of paper that I want to look at later, I'll make note of my calendar, review, invitation to whatever, and then I say where I put it. So I don't have to think about where to put it. I don't have to have a huge filing system. I just say, okay, it's in my standing file, or it's in my bill box, whatever it is.
Oh,
So
we are so together on that one thing. It goes in my calendar, either Google Calendar, online, whatever online system. But I keep a paper calendar as well,
mhm.
and that is the key, because I don't know if you tell this to your clients who are trying to organize things. It's not about where you put it. It's about how quickly can you get it when you need it later.
Well, I have a story about that, and I should have a picture of it available to you, but I don't. And maybe I do, actually. Oh, I do. I can show you.
Oh,
This
awesome.
was my very first client's office that I ever encountered. Can you see?
Okay.
For 8 years, all he did was put pieces of paper on. He was actually sitting on the mail in his chair and all this kind of thing. So I helped him get his office organized, and I received a frantic call one morning. He desperately needed a piece of paper to go to his doctor's office. Where was it? He couldn't find it. He looked here and here and here. So I knew where it was. I had put it away for him, filed it appropriately. So I told him where it was. And he said, okay, I found it. When I get back, where should I put it? And I said, in the first place you looked, because that's what made sense to him. I
Yes.
put it where it made the most sense to me in organizing in his office, but he had a thought of where he should look for that. So keep that in mind as you're deciding where things go. Well, where are you going to want to retrieve it again? A young mom may have textbooks in the china cabinet, and people will go, why are textbooks in the china cabinet? She homeschools at the dining room table. Makes much more sense than having the kids drag the textbooks out to their bedrooms or an office or whatever. Another woman that I dealt with, she paid her bills in bed, so we set up a little system next to her bed, so she didn't have to worry about moving things and making it so difficult to put things away.
I love that. And for anybody who's listening and not watching this interview, the picture Brenda showed was just a huge mountain of papers stashed willy-nilly on multiple shelves in multiple ways. And it would have been, I think, a little bit of a safety hazard
Oh,
trying to
a
pull
big
any
safety hazard.
one thing out of there. I
Yeah.
think what goes along with this is also the level of detail you need when you're filing. My
Mhm.
husband thought he wanted a way to file all the medical records that we do have to keep. There's a lot we don't need to keep, but sometimes you don't know that you need to keep it. So what do you do with it? and he tried, by doctor, by incident, and that all became too much to deal with. So I gave him a box and I said, just when you get it, put it in so it's somewhat chronological. We may never have to touch this box, and at the end of the year, we just archive that box for so many years. You don't have to overthink the organizing process either, right?
Yes. Exactly. That's, my one client that doesn't have the perfect system. She tries to color code folders, then she tries to put them in a certain file cabinet that's in a certain room, and it is so complicated that she rarely files, because the harder you make it, the less you're going to do it. And that's why I say that being organized is easier than getting organized.
Oh, great.
So,
all right. I want to make sure we have time to get through a couple of your other points here. So number 4, I love this. It's go for the easy wins. And what kind of things can we look at to go for the easy wins?
well, here's actually the very meat of this conversation, where being organized is easier than getting organized. So easy wins would include things like throw out expired food. Nobody's going to eat it. The food bank's not going to take it. When you go in your cupboard to cook and you grab a can and you realize that it's 4 years out of date, toss it right then and there. You just were organized. You didn't have to get organized. Unfinished projects. Now, there are people who do want to finish projects, but if you've got a baby sweater for a kid that just graduated college, you probably don't need to finish that project and hang on to that yarn. And there are so many great organizations who do charitable knitting or anything. Every kind of project you can think of can be donated somewhere or other. Clothes that don't fit, we're always either trying to lose weight, some people are trying to gain weight, or trying to shift our size. But if clothes don't fit, let them go. And I love what Fly Lady says, and this is how I coach people. You're not getting rid of something when you donate it. You're blessing someone else with it. And that makes it a lot easier for people to let things go when they realize that, this perfectly good thing I'll never wear, I'll let it go. But I do caution people not to donate things that are not usable, because those charitable organizations have to pay for dumping, and it's not right.
What's nice is that a lot of those organizations are now donating things that they can't resell or give away to textile companies that are repurposing that material. Marie Kondo also says, give thanks, actually say thanks to the thing that you're giving away.
Exactly.
Right.
And then magazines, and this is iffy depending on what your business is, if you're constantly doing research, but most people get magazine subscriptions, they don't read them. You've got 6 years of magazines, you're not going to go through them. So donate them to a school, library, whatever. And then gifts you don't ever intend to use. We've all gotten that ugly vase from an aunt that we really hate, and we're told that we have to keep it because she was whatever, rich, whatever. No, if you don't intend to use it, bless someone else with it.
Right. All right. And then your number 5 tip.
Clear your desk at the end of your workday. And that can be as easy as taking a file-size box and just take everything off the desk and put it in that box. Because when you come in the next day, you are going to feel so energized to have a clear space. It's just the opposite when you see clutter on there. My first task for any organizing client that I get is to always pick a small space that they're going to keep clear for a week, because it does a mind shift. Before, you just ignored the clutter. When you keep a space free for a week, after a while, it drives you crazy to see anything on it.
It's like having that shiny, clean sink at night and seeing that first thing in the morning. You're in a better frame of mind to eat healthy for that day.
Yeah, and I say to put it in a box next to you just because it's everything that was still on the desk. So if you needed something the next day, it's not going to take you very long to paw through. It shouldn't. But that, people always use the phrase, as soon as I get organized. So what I say is you can be organized right away by making the decision that, okay, this thing that I got in the mail, I'm either going to use it by expiration or I'm not. So where do you keep things that you're going to make sure to use? Pick a place, and that's always the place that your ads go, that you're definitely going to take care of. And then you schedule reviewing those ads on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. I love these tips. I know you've got some wonderful articles on your website, and tell us your most popular one, and we'll put that link in. And if you happen to know what the link is, you can actually say that.
Okay. Well, the title, the website is thedeclutterlady.com,
Mm-hmm.
and the title of the article is 5 Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Things That Will Happen If You Throw Away Photos. That was written in 2013, and I still get monthly comments on it from people. The thing about pictures is we've got this phobia thinking that if we get rid of pictures, we're actually hurting our loved ones. And you'll find the 5 horrible things that will happen if you read the article. But it goes back to the point of making sure that the reason why you're keeping anything is valid. I don't agree with the only keep things that make you happy. Speaking of pictures, there are pictures throughout my house of my son. We've been estranged for many years. I'm not going to get rid of pictures because I'm sad to see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part of my life, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, not everything needs to make you happy. It needs to have value to you.
Yeah, I agree with all of those tips. And one of the reasons why you and I tend to have these long chats on Facebook sometimes, because we're always talking about our mutual frames of mind. And my kids are coming back a little bit at this time, but we're estranged for many, many years as well. We have this love of books and the type of books we like. And I am so glad that you spent time with us today, because I don't think enough attention gets focused on the type of decluttering that you and I really promote for creative people.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be uber organized and to follow all of these systems, but if those systems aren't right for you and you can't keep them up and you feel guilty about it and it's making your life worse, then that's not a system for you.
No, because the point of being organized is to make your life easier, not to make you miserable.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Brenda, for being my special guest today. And this is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com, closing another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Remember to come back next week when I will have another special guest. And until then, remember to keep rocking your unique path to success. Bye-bye.